Hello, everyone. My name is Johnathan Delgado, and welcome to my presentation on why video games are considered art. First, let's start with a quote from Roger Ebert, who famously stated that video games cannot be considered art. This perspective highlights a traditional view on art and its definitions. In contrast, Kelly Santiago emphasizes the emotional connection that video games can foster among people, and Brenda Romero takes it a step further, declaring that games are the most significant art form of our time. These differing viewpoints illustrate the ongoing debate about the artistic value of video games in our culture. Video games share many elements with other forms of pop culture, such as storytelling, visuals, and rhythm found in film, TV, and music. They offer unique features, particularly interactivity, allowing players to shape the meaning of their experiences. Just like film and TV, video games tell stories and utilize cinematic visuals, relying on rhythm and mood to enhance engagement. The defining strength of video games is their interactivity. Players actively participate rather than just observe, which influences the narrative. Some critics argue that this interactivity can make games feel less controlled, while others believe that it enhances their power and impact. Next, let's explore the criteria for classifying art, focusing on emotional impact, aesthetic quality, creative intent, and cultural meaning. These criteria help us evaluate whether a work evokes emotion and has a clear artistic intent, as well as it's significant within a cultural context. Now, why is Elden Ring considered art? This game transcends typical video game experiences, showcasing artistic elements like world building and design that contribute to its narrative depth. The game's visuals, music, and choreographed boss fights create an immersive experience, allowing players to engage with art in a very unique way. Next, let's look at high versus low art in video games. The example that I choose to pull is Fortnite as low art and Elden Ring as high art. In my opinion, high art is associated with themes, symbolism, and critique, while low art is accessible entertainment. Elden Ring is dense, mythic, and visually powerful, which is clearly high art. Fortnite is colorful and fun, but just often about brand crossovers, which doesn't really make it high art. I think it's very clear to say that Fortnite is low art, while Elden Ring is high art. Fortnite is a game just about being the best shooter, while Elden Ring is a game that evokes a lot of personal emotion and meaning to the player. Next, let's explore the role of interactivity in gaming as an art form. On the positive side, co-authorship allows players to create personal meaning, making each playthrough a unique experience. Additionally, embodied empathy enhances emotional impact as players make choices and face consequences, moving beyond passive observation. However, there are challenges to still consider. A diluted authorial voice can obscure a clear artistic statement due to multiple paths and outcomes. Furthermore, skill and access barriers may prevent some audiences to fully engage with the intended aesthetic of the game. While there are a lot of pros and cons for interactivity in gaming, I think that interactivity is a pro in gaming. I think that interactivity does transcend the barrier of just observing something and truly makes players feel the consequences of their own decisions, which is why I choose to play games that make me interact a lot because I think that it makes it more meaningful and it just makes you more hooked to the storyline in the game. And I also think that interactivity's role in gaming as art should not block video games to be considered art. While most art is something you just observe and then just think of, I think that interactivity is something really cool that all art forms can pick up on. Finally, let's explore these three iconic titles: Elden Ring, The Last of Us, and God of War. I picked Elden Ring because it feels like walking through a living painting. The world building plus environmental storytelling make every ruin, boss arena, and item description part of a bigger myth you piece together yourself. The art direction turns exploration into emotion, and your build routes choices that make a very meaningful outcome to the person slash player. It checks the art boxes as aesthetics, intent, and a lasting cultural impact. This game is a masterpiece for its time and truly makes players face a lot of choices, and it also has a very great storyline, and the narrative is awesome, which is why I think it's considered art. The Last of Us is art because it treats game storytelling with the same seriousness as film. Complex characters, more moral ambiguity, and performances that actually make you feel something. Camera work, sound, and level design push the narrative instead of just decorating it. It's not just fun, it's challenging and emotional, asking you to sit down with uncomfortable choices and consequences. And finally, God of War is a myth told through motion. Combat is choreography, a continuous one-shot camera, and set pieces that feel operatic. Under the spectacle is a tight human story about family, responsibility, and legacy. Visual design, music, and world building all pulled together in the same direction, turning a blockbuster into a cohesive, expressive work of art. These are my references for the quotes on slide 2. These are my references for all the images used in the presentation. And finally, thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching the presentation on why I think art games are considered an art form.